Don't forget to do the headphone thing. Yeah.
Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you are listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 711. My name is Eric Nielsen, and with me today, I have a new co-host, Bob Plankers. Today is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. Bob, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's an absolute privilege to be here. So, yeah, it's cold up in Wisconsin right now. I think it's like 5 or 6 degrees, something single digits or whatever. So you got my flannel on. Yeah.
It's bright and chilly in the Bay Area as well. We're right in the middle of January. We do get cold. It was 27 degrees and we had frost on the grass this morning. So, you know, it is kind of chilly. It's winter time. So Bob, we haven't had a technical co-host since Matt Lungeth stopped hosting, I think last summer or sometime May of last year. So it's great to have you on board because, thanks. I'm from marketing, Corey is from marketing, and we always want to have a super technical guy on the show that can co-host and go that level deeper. So I really appreciate you coming every Wednesday to be part of the show and be part of the community. You've always been big on the show and big on the community, so thanks a lot.
Yes, I've really appreciated this podcast. I'm starting to feel old thinking about how 711 episodes, man. Wow, just
thanks
for having me. I technically am in marketing as well, but we won't.
That's
technical marketing, of course.
Your tech marketing is different than web and community marketing. No question about that.
Bunch of nerds in the middle of the marketing groups. Yeah,
right. On the show today, we are going to be talking about vDefend and ransomware with Waldemar Pera, Pera. So, Waldemar, welcome to the show. We'll get to you in a second, but it's good to see you. You come from South America. What country are you from?
Hi, everyone. I born in Uruguay, but lived in the last 12 years in Chile.
In Chile?
In Chile. And the surname is Pera, like is the fruit.
Pera. Yeah, right. Got it.
It's usually in Spanish say like the fruit, but in English it doesn't work. But it's okay.
That's great. Well, it's funny you're from Chile because I'm chilly right now because it's in California and it's 27 degrees outside in the mornings. But we'll get to you in a minute. But before we do, Corey Romero, you're up in Utah, vExperts. I know apps are open. What's going on?
So applications are open until the 24th, this Friday. So get your applications in. We expect to announce the awards by February 21st or before. So we're shooting before that. And then thanks to all the vExperts who sent in your quotes about the vExpert program. We're going to be using those very soon. And then as far as 27 degrees, Eric, that's like our high if we're lucky here in Utah. It was -4 2 days ago.
Well, what I've learned about all this is if you're from California, you don't have any heavy winter coats, and cold weather is all just about what do you wear, right? I go to Denmark and Copenhagen, and everybody's out, and it's like 18 degrees Fahrenheit, and they're sitting out sipping their coffee, and they just have really good wool coats and happiness. So it's all relative, and it's all just about how much warm clothes have you invested in? And I have nothing. I have hoodies. So there you go. So Bob, anything else we want to talk about before we get to Waldemar?
I don't have anything on my slate right now. The reminder to get my vExpert application in is a good one, and thank you, Corey, for extending that. I completely fumbled that one.
And I'll just mention that the vMug Advantage program is running strong. You can go purchase your vMug Advantage program and you get the discount for the VCF test, the VCP-VCF test. And then we will have the 3-year-long really license for VCF Home Labs. So you'll get a full VCF license. And that project is ongoing, and we'll create a Advantage tab, a vMug Advantage tab in your customer portal. environment. So when you come in
Mm.
to your Broadcom customer portal, you'll just have a VMUG Advantage tab there, which will have your full VCF or VVF license, depending on what test you pass. But if you go VCF, VCP-VCF, you'll get that full license, and that's on track to go live in the first week of March. So we're busy with that. So this gives you some study time. I've been studying. I've done the vSphere install, manage, config class. I've done the vSAN install, manage, config class, and I'm halfway through the NSX install, manage, config class, so that coming up to speed. And there's a lot of stuff I've learned that I just haven't paid attention to the products for a while. So spend your time, go get VMUG Advantage. They auto renew, so it's a couple $100 a year. Great for the community, helps fund all the stuff. The VMUG Connect in St. Louis is scheduled for April, so watch for announcements there. We've got the list of content. It's going to be really good. It's going to be some 300 level sessions, 200 level sessions, a lot of deep dives in the content, and so excited about that. VMUG Advantage membership will also get you a couple private sessions with William Lamb and others. So should be a fun event. It's basically a full solid 2-day event. So watch out for that. If you're in the Midwest, it's a must do. For other people, you can always just go to a user con in your local area and so forth. And with those public announcements, let's get to Waldemar. Waldemar, we always spend a couple minutes to give us your career arc. How did you get here? What do you do in the VMware ecosystem? And then we'll get into, why are you talking about vDefend and ransomware? So the floor is yours.
Okay. The short answer is today I work in the enterprise architecture in the VMware by Broadcom partner. And my last life was working directly in VMware, but that's changing the things. That past, I focused mainly with the virtual cloud network stuff of course, NSX. That is maybe the main excuse to talking around now NSX security, now vDefend. But not only that, especially when the talking around the security is a broad topic. Yeah, Bob is very know what is the big topic. So, for example, in my perspective, is talking not only to the protect the workload, maybe with vDefense, and see an holistic view to the security. And that is the target what my session in the last Explore in Las Vegas and Barcelona, and starting in two different approach. The first approach, we're talking around the VCF security stuff. Bob is explaining around that, especially around the vSphere, vCenter, and other stuff. Mainly focused because when you're talking now today, the post event for ransomware usually is not only maybe a problem in the workload, maybe it's a lack in the security, in the management stuffs. And that is a nice approach with the VCF, especially when they're talking around the main domain, management domain. You have the capability to create a lot of natural recipe to create a security environment. And that is the start, because when you see this big problem with the ransomware, usually the problem is the access management and the authentication, the identity for the people. And that was the topic in my session the last year.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really cool. So let's just get to it, here, I was asked yesterday, and I'll ask you the same question that I got asked, ransomware. What's the first thing you would do in any environment right now where you walk up to an environment? What's the first thing that you would do, that you would recommend people do in order to help protect themselves against ransomware?
Seeing what is the last more traditional vectors for those incidents, maybe the main forget topic is handle the identity management privilege. That is the big topic. What you're talking normally in your session, Bob, solely talking about what's the vCenter handle that identity, because you have the kingdom in the vCenter. You have the control to, and in that level, in privilege level to the vCenter, doesn't care what is other stuff you have around. So more time the people forget the critical stuff for the privileged access. That is the main key today in this topic.
Yep. Privileged access, identity. It's absolutely critical. People don't think of that as hardening either. They think about the technical controls and all the nerd knobs that I call them nerd knobs. And, you set them right and then you can forget about them, and they don't think about that sort of thing. But what about access control? So you're talking about the broader category of access control. What else can we do for access control then too?
The main topic when they're talking around, for example, is mainly when they're talking around VCF today, you have too much things around to handle the different access privilege to different components inside VCF. And what you see, the single sign-on inside the vCenter is the key for that handle.
Yep.
The thing is the evolution from the more traditional connection, maybe the local, not very good user defined the vCenter, and connect with another things around, another identity provider, maybe LDAP, maybe Active Directory, or maybe more modern things. What it provides you use additional provide, for example, multi-factor authentication.
Yeah,
and that's allowed this increase the level what you from to these bad guys. And that is open with the last version, especially with the vSphere 8 and VCF, of course, 5 and that X. You have more and more and more option additional to the traditional. I think is today, especially for the privileged access, when you're talking, not maybe the end user, but privileged access need more requirement. A multi-factor option, especially with the new modern authentication identity, as a strong recommendation to starting to take an other level before the legacy. Especially when you say post-mortem incident ransomware, is a lot traditional access, maybe stolen credential, or maybe sometimes create user in the Active Directory and they never see it before, after post events.
You can even see it in the news reports about large scale breaches and that. You read the report of the breach, and where did they come from? They came from the identity provider. And it doesn't matter, Active Directory is a common one, not to pick on Microsoft, but just Active Directory has been wildly successful, such that it's the main vector for a lot of stuff. But it's not limited to just that, even cloud identity providers, and once organizations that do both their authentication and their authorization in the identity provider, you get somebody malicious in there, game over, right?
Yeah.
And then, but we can add other levels around this. I often describe it sort of as an onion, all the different layers, and every time you peel one, you cry a little bit, right? And so we can add other layers to this too. We can also add some defense in depth with vDefend, and other firewalling technologies. We can do, IP addresses aren't really a substitute for proper identification and, and that sort of thing, but we can do some limiting there too. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, more traditional maybe security, especially when they're talking about the workloads, was mainly for several years thinking the IP. The IP was equal the identity. But today, you don't know really the IP is owner for something, especially when they're talking some dynamic environment, some cloud. The IP is something, nothing more for connect, but don't define who is who. And when that is approached, when they're talking around, for example, vDefend, it's possible alignment the workloads around the security groups. And that security group, more alignment, not the IP. What is the functional or the layer for the application? So starting not something about the infrastructure, starting for up from the application, understood what is the application, what is the layer application. Doesn't matter what is the IP connectivity. And when you create this logic for the security, it's more dynamic, it's more open, it's more cloud aware for these dynamic things, not static. That is the big approach. While the talking maybe more so traditional VMs or maybe cloud native application, you don't see what is IP. So you need alignment, assignment, a group create for different levels for the application and define that connection. And the same concept when you're talking about vDefend, especially when you're talking about the vDefend distributed firewall. In the part for the vDefend, you have the security intelligence, all NSX intelligence, to help to the customer, not the first stage, for the last, because you need starting with layer for what is think the infrastructure. What is it your DNS? What is your LDAP? What is the infrastructure things? The second level is the environment. This is production. This is developer. What is thing? And then go inside, for example, the production. This is the application 1. This is the application 2. Define what is connect. And inside the application, in the level of the application, this is the micro-segmentation. And intelligence, security intelligence, helpful, the last, the more, maybe especially to define, because it's easy to define what is my infrastructure workload, my environment. But sometimes what happens inside the application is the more complicated or the more rough to the customer. Mm-hmm. And that is the idea with the security intelligence to help in the last stage for close and close and close. A zero trust in the end.
Yeah, no, and those layers are really important because, people screw up. Humans screw up. Things get labeled wrong. Things, and so having multiple levels, not to say anybody that's listening to this isn't perfect. You're all wonderful and perfect and all that stuff. But, hypothetically speaking, of course, if there's a gap or a crack in the defenses there, like you want something that's the point of defense in depth, that you can have different things. There's a model or an analogy people use sometimes, Swiss cheese, how it's got.
I was just going to bring that up. You beat me to the point of the Swiss cheese airline crash analysis, which is.
Well, I don't know about the airline. I've never heard the airline. What's the airline crash part of it?
So there's YouTubers. There's YouTubers that talk about small airplane crashes, right? They just take every crash that happens every once a month or two, and they just talk about it. And they talk about the Swiss cheese approach of typically a small plane that crashes, or even a big plane, will require, because there's enough backup safety systems in place on an airliner that you need 3 or 4 failures, and they got to kind of line up in the right order in order to have the plane actually fall out of the air. And it's the same process where you want to have enough redundant systems that even if 1 or 2 fail, you've got 1 or 2 that are there and things didn't line up, and so the plane keeps flying, right? Same Swiss cheese approach.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense. But having those layers are really important, and the dynamic nature of it too, because static things in organizations are not static. They keep changing things, and I know organizations fight change and all that stuff. We could talk for hours about that, but when they change things, having to have the process to update all the static stuff sucks. It's terrible, and it's extra work, it's extra friction, it's things to remember. And again, humans make mistakes. Humans get distracted. I'm very distractible. Anybody who talk to me knows that I'm distractible. And, so somebody remembering to do all of the steps of a process all the way through the process. Maybe it's not automated. Most organizations aren't as automated as they want to, as they tell people or want to be, and so, having this stuff automated in a way that just makes sense, especially tags and NSX and vDefend, and you get that dynamic stuff, the components that you're talking about with the mappings to the people, to actual Active Directory and identity sources. That's huge,
So I have a general question for people that are listening along. Like, so I have VCF, right? And I have NS. Am I using NSX in order to use vDefend, right? Am I using virtual? I have virtual switches and ESX, right? I mean, vSphere has virtual switches. Then I have NSX that gets me using hypervisors as my switch fabric, right? And so, and then does vDefend plug into that? Like, so, and then assumes you have NSX as hypervisors being switches, and then it's adding that application layer security. Is that the kind of the product stack that I'm trying to get in my head here?
Yeah, when you're talking about the vDefend, especially you're thinking to approach the gateway, maybe more close to the traditional. But the thing is the distribute, the key and the value when they're talking about is the use as distribute security. When they're talking about distributed security, it's possible, for example, with the distribute firewall from vDefend, provide security stuff directly in the more close to the endpoint. It's directly in the pipeline. You put this capability inside in the cable, connect the VM, the NIC to the rest of the network. Doesn't care what happened in the network. For example, it's possible today use vDefend distribute firewall about VLAN base using the NSX? Yes, of course. Use some transition. Customer today is more traditional hardware networking, but the stuff for the security is very strong. It's possible to create that security, and that today and VLAN base provide for the NSX, and they migrate the network stuff to directly overlay an NSX. It doesn't matter what happened in the security because it's flow, because the security use the application.
Yeah,
and that is, and especially, for example, my experience in the last years, especially for Latam customers, what is the main focus? A lot capability around the distribute firewall was the main adoption for NSX before the network virtualization. The discussion changed now with the VCF because the idea is create a cloud model for provide IT. And you always say, cloud is not a place, it's a model operational. As a cloud. And that is create a thing. When they're talking around the cloud, in the cloud things, the software define something: compute, storage, networking, and security. But that is easy when they're talking about what the greenfield space. But when the customer go to the brownfield, you need to go and approach. And NSX, starting with the vDefend for security, especially distribute, it's a nice stop for beginning to get that provider. And they follow the journey because it's impossible to go to the 0 to 100 in one day. You need the evolution. It's process, people, and technology. VCF and vDefend is a enablement for the technology, the technology perspective, but always you need alignment, the people, and the process in the organization. And you have the technology, of course, you have VCF, and you're starting everything around the cloud, or especially in this thing around the security. And what you say, the layers, Bob, about the onion is the same. You have different layers. Is that when people say, okay, I have this firewall, it's enough? It's enough maybe for reduce the fortify attack, yes. But sometimes you need open some windows and doors because the application needs touch between. And the question is, in this packet between that endpoint, is a nice guy or a bad guy?
Yeah.
So I start in the second part when they're talking about ATP. The evolution with the ATP is, okay, vDefend, especially in distribute, you reduce the surface. It's more close, it's more reduced, it's okay. It's a first stage. I repeat for the customer, starting for the core environment, application, and that in the micro-segmentation. That is a journey, long journey. And then when you come this approach, the people has always working, understood what is the power inside vDefend to the evolution to the rest of the stack. For example, starting with the introduce IDS IPS, because starting to see what happened in that packet, or maybe starting to see with the NTA, see strange behaviors in the network. Not bad by itself, because the IPS detect the bad guys. Something strange. And at the same time, for example, today, it's possible malware protection or prevention with the part for the malware prevent. And the all, in the end, is not see firewall, IPS, malware, is collapse everything the view in intelligent way is that is NDR. So you have a lot of tools when starting with the vDefend and increase with the ATP that different level. Is focus in the workload. Of course, you need the baseline for the talking about what happened in the management stack. But when the talking the workloads, you have different level to improve that layer in the onion to see the security. The security is not one stop. It's a continuous journey. The people need still. Is end work? No, sorry. We need work every day for the security. And you have the tools for adapt that continuous dynamic. Bob.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. And your point about security as a continuous process, that's where people get confused with compliance, regulatory compliance. They do what looks like security once a year, once every 2 years, and hey, we're done with security. Yay! No, thanks for playing. You've been hacked, but there's a couple of things. I was taking some notes here. You covered a lot of ground here. Your comment about the fatal flaw in all of the security is the having to punch holes in your defenses to get people access to the applications. That's if it weren't for the applications, our jobs would be easy, right? And so yeah, that's a really important point that you need. The firewalling is great, but ultimately you're letting things in. You need to be able to monitor that as well. The ability to do that and monitor ongoing threats, not even just IDS, IPS sorts of things, but things that look suspicious that don't match a signature or whatever. That's, because people come up with new things from time to time. And, the bad side of the security community, the attackers are very creative at times. And so that's, that doesn't play in that's not a good thing for us on the defense side. You mentioned the ability to grow into things. That's really huge too. Being able to take these tools and meet an organization where it's at and help evolve that organization. That's really cool. Cloud is not a place. It's a way of thinking. That's a super important point to make. And people get lost with that. You can do cloud things on premises just fine. And you can treat the cloud, the hyperscalers, as your traditional IT stuff too. You don't have to, and just use whatever's best for you. But the last thing that I want to reiterate, and you kind of touched on it, is the idea that of microsegmentation, that it happens at the virtual NIC level. And something that a lot of folks don't understand, networking is not the most understood thing by sysadmins and virtualization admins. And the idea that when you have everything on a VLAN or a network segment, there's no controls there. Like and especially if you've got holes punched in the firewall and I haven't patched my app, I get hacked. I suffer a breach. I should watch saying hacked. Hacking's got positive terms, positive connotations as well. But I suffer a breach, and then they use my machine to probe all the other stuff on that network segment. They're going to break into yours, Waldemar, and and you're going to, they're going to abuse that trust between the trust we have in the network. Maybe you're not protecting against attacks from the network, because why would there be an attack coming from, the next server, the next IP over, that sort of thing. But, being able to firewall at the NIC and having the tools to be able to, especially the dynamic stuff you were talking about, to be able to cope with that and policy changes and things like that, to cope with that on the fly, but also protect against the guy right next to you. Like you can protect yourself again from me. Maybe I go rogue and start attacking everything just because I'm bored, but yeah, no, I wanted to reiterate those points because I think you had a lot of great stuff there, but there's some some real nuggets in there. So yeah,
So,
I like
so, so Bob, before we started the show, we were talking a little bit, and I mentioned that, okay, so we have VCF, and I install VCF, and if I'm using VMware Advantage, I get all that, and we have been working with the A&S division to also include vDefend in that. Even though it's not part of VCF, we are going to try to include the vDefend product as licenses for part of the VMware Advantage.
That'd be terrific.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And
so
people experience with it. It's a terrific set of tools.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I'm trying to get my head around is, what do I get from those tools, right? Like if I'm buying vDefend, or I get it at VMware Advantage and I install it as an add-on to VCF, and it probably shows up in vCenter. What are the top 3 or 4 features? Is it endpoint application, firewalling or monitoring, or what are those things that if I'm a VMware Advantage, I go, I should install vDefend and play with this. What am I actually playing with this? And I don't understand it.
Yeah. I always, this is a journey, okay? You have a lot of capabilities inside the vDefend with the ATP. So for me, always starting with the vDefend distributed firewall, thinking out the box, not thinking the security limit is in the network. Use what is above. The limit is impossible to go directly to the NIC, not inside the NIC. Use the hypervisor with the security border for control. And that allows to thinking around the application. And again, it's a journey.
Okay, so I would say high level application firewalling.
Yeah,
that would be
the old school microseg.
Yeah. This is the need, because when you see this problem with the limits for the stuff, when it's about the thing move it for around the network, you need to put with the distributed firewall directly the control. With that, you reduce the attack surface. The big thing to start is the distributed firewall. Of course, you have high level applications.
So, all right, another question, because I'm dangerous now, right? So I got my vNICs, right? I got my vNICs, I got my zones, right? I got an SX, I got my zones, right? And now I'm applying. Am I applying the firewall, endpoint firewall, to the vNICs and to the zones and NSX, or am I applying them down to the physical switches that connect? Where am I applying those?
What is this
application
physical
firewall
stuff you're talking about?
Right. Yeah,
we've forgotten about physical switches.
I understand. This is okay, good. So I think that answers my question, which is firewalling at the application level at the zones of NSX, right? That I'm actually using this product, right?
And one short thing don't forget, when do you see this concept around the VMs, around the hypervisor, when do you see the Kubernetes world, the cloud native application talking about the Kubernetes?
Sure.
You have inside the cluster, you have the CNI, the networking stuff and security stuff, because you have network policy inside to define what connect inside the paths.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
It's possible with NSX is use Antria and CI, for example, for the old TKS, now VKS, the Kubernetes runtime for VMware. It's possible to integrate the network policy inside Antria with the distributed firewalls from the NSX. And it's possible to create security rules combine both worlds. So for organization, thinking on this bimodal application, so more traditional VMs, and the same time cloud native around the Kubernetes.
Sure.
For the security, with this stuff for distributed firewall, it's possible to put together working in the same infrastructure, VCF.
So my interpretation of that is microservice, Kubernetes microservice endpoint management capabilities in vDefend, so that I can also set up firewalls on microservice endpoint connections, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it can set itself up too based on policies, the ability to
and policy,
the whole Kubernetes thing where like you can define what the application should look like and just let the infrastructure figure it out. That's that dynamic stuff Waldemar's talking about here. And that's glorious, because those systems are complicated already, but but it's complicated in a way that that pushes things forward. It really automates. You really want to automate things that can just let the computers do what they're good at, that sort of thing. And so, tell them what you want.
Yes, and if you've taken these classes, you quickly realize that everything is policy, right? Because that's what you get is like 3 policy modules per class, because it's all policy driven, and there's all a bunch of questions at the end of everything that we have to memorize. Where do you go find and set these policies? But that's, of course, it's all policy driven. Yep, and policy template driven. So you can set up you get templates for all the different policies you want, and you can add 4 different policy templates to the zone and apply, and away you go, right? So they help you do that. Yep.
Yeah. And they keep you from making mistakes then too, is the thing. Assigning a policy, you can let the infrastructure, especially like patching a cluster, you can let the infrastructure decide how it wants to do that, rather than you just deciding, well, I'm going to patch server A here, and is that the right choice? Maybe not. Like if there's a policy, if you've told the computers what you want, let them figure it out. You say, hey, I want this whole thing updated,
and policy synchronization across all your ESX nodes, right? Because you need to have all that pushed out to every single node every time you want to make a little change. And so managing that also. Yep.
Yeah. And that's one of the big things about, vDefend and NSX and all that stuff. The policies flow with the applications as well, and so that's huge.
And tiered policy or inheritance, right? So you get inheritance as well on the policies, so that's also pretty nice, right? So I can see that. Okay, I got my questions answered right now. I know we're just working through vDefend right now on adding it to Advantage, and we have to come up with why would somebody want to play with this, right? And we're still trying to convince everybody why you need to get NSX and vSAN, right? And why you're going to spend extra time and energy to learn this stuff, right? And then the next thing is vDefend as well. Why? And it's really elegant, I got to say. Putting it all together in a hypervisor and just having network of hypervisors that do everything makes sense, right? I like it.
And maybe not directly with this topic, because this idea today is talking about vDefend ATV, but don't forget AV load balancer, because the service provide for load balancer, you have a lot of stuff around security for the application, especially for the web application. Not only the WAF, you have a lot of things around security, web application, inside the AD load balancer. And that combination, you have, and again, different level, different onions to protect the application they were loaded in the end.
Yeah. Well, you put a load balancer in front of an application, not only do you get resilience for the application, but that load balancer is going to start getting attacked too, and it's actually a really interesting point. You get a lot of visibility into the traffic coming in there too. So to your point, and so, that's a really good observation.
Not to switch the channel too much here, but we also had ransomware. We had vDefend and ransomware in our title.
This is all a prelude to stopping it in its tracks, Eric.
Right. I understand that. But my question is, because I haven't had Bob around for I think the last time I've had Bob on the show was a year ago or something like that, maybe less. But anything new on ransomware in general, right? Is there any new trend that's happening? 6 months is a long time for the world of ransomware. I was just wondering if there's anything new that's popped up in the last 6 months that I need to be frightened about.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, probably, but nothing that pops up, right? Okay, good.
Waldemar covered it early on. He talking about identity. That ransomware. Ransomware. People are scared of ransomware, but ransomware is the end of an attack. There's all sorts of stuff that people do. These attackers will do things between the initial access to your environment and the ransomware is sometimes years long. I think it was IBM that actually had a study that said it was the average time that they attacked is 340 days or whatever. And I know the InfoSec community has said, "Oh, that seems really long," but because if that's an average, then some of these things are 2 years long. But if you think about it, attackers also want to go through. If a nation state. There are various nation states that sponsor hacking groups and cyber battalions and things like that. And, the United States is one of them.
I'm sure we play in that space. Yep. That's right.
Yes, but, other nation states that want to instruct their people when they break in, they go through all of the intellectual property and all of that stuff, because, imagine a threat actors, basically an advanced persistent threat APT groups. They break into a legal firm. They've got all these secrets about their clients, and they can use that to extort money from the clients. They can use that as leverage in business situations, and so they will look around, they'll exfiltrate, they'll copy data out from environments. And so being able to detect exfiltration with some of these tools, be able to detect that activity going on before it gets to ransomware. Ransomware is the covering your tracks part. They pull they pull or flip the switch on that, and it's chaos, and maybe they'll get some money out of it. But these attack groups are making money in other ways,
selling your data.
They're selling your data. They're subverting your intellectual property claims. They're manufacturing your own stuff cheaper than you can.
I know I've been looking at, sessions that are going to be happening at VMware Connect in St. Louis, and some other sessions that have been dribbling in for Explore, right, where we're looking at that. And there has been like ransomware recovery processes, right? So VMware does promote ransomware recovery processes. And so I just wonder if anything new there, or we're just keeping up with the Joneses. Did they create a new coin that I'm not aware of that I have to, start harvesting so I can pay the next time I get broken into, like
the Eric cryptocurrency.
The Eric.
You got to pay in that or pay it. Yeah. Oh my
goodness. But I know we do some sessions on the restoration, right? And
and we've got live recovery. Waldemar, have you done much with live recovery?
Yeah, in that case, what you're talking about, what is the strategy against ransomware? Of course, you have different layers. Access management privilege is the first thing. When you're talking about ransomware, of course, this encryption for the workload is the last stage. So the idea behind, you have different layers to protect and detect before go to the last. But sometimes it's possible. You go to ransomware, you forget, and you need recovery. And that post, the last stage is the recovery. And that is the main topic also. What did you see? Okay, I have the data for the recovery. But my question is, the infrastructure is clean? It's no compromise? My backups is clean. It's no compromise. So the problem when they're talking about
you're not making me feel good here, Waldemar.
Well,
sorry.
You should do better at this.
but it's true. But this is the people and the customer and the organization need to aware. It's not the same as site recovery for the disaster traditional when you have RPO and
you don't just start everything up again because it's compromised.
It's a different beast to this discussion, and you need to create some isolate, clean environment to start. That is the big topic for the customer, and the live recovery provide some cloud-based.
Yeah, there was an outage. There was a big outage, and I was somewhere in the last month or so listening to somebody at a VMware group meeting or wherever it was, a customer talking about their restoration process and how difficult it was to get their first system up and believe that it was not compromised, right? Like how far did they have to go back? And they restored in like a day and a half or two. And the first day was just getting that first system back up where they believe they had a stable base. Then they could start layering on recovery, right? But it took them 24 hours to figure out what they had and what they didn't have and what was infected and what wasn't.
Yeah. And having tools that help that. I'm sorry, Waldemar, go ahead.
No, I remember some, no names for customer, but remember some customer recovering from the backup doesn't care the infrastructure. It's okay, it's up and running, but 2 weeks later, and again with the same ransomware because the infrastructure, it's not enough.
Right.
The backup, you need clean environment.
Right.
Create an air gap environment to recover, or use some service, maybe like recovery, to provide that. But the backup is not only the situation. You need clean environment.
Especially when you start talking firmware, right? Like if you've got some
my
firmware
goodness.
infection, oh my gosh, like what? How do you know your
sometimes,
hardware's
yes.
even any good, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
yes.
Yeah, there was so HPE had a situation with that with their ILOs a number of years back, and they've
Right.
done some amazing work since. It's all signed, amazing work to keep the attackers the heck out of their firmware. You
Right.
don't want places for attackers to hide, all that stuff. In fact, HPE's got a great story around that.
You're down on Dell.com ordering new servers, hoping that you get.
Yeah, I don't
something
actually
new
know what I've done. I did a white paper with HPE a year and a half ago about a lot of the security stuff, so I know their stuff a little bit better. But yeah, firmware is insidious. All these management engines that are inside of servers and PCs and that, they're little computers unto themselves. And
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
You need to start to trust something. The first trust is critical. The rest is create above that first trust. The question is, this first trust is trusted? Yes or no? That is the question.
Yeah, and prove it. How do you prove that you establish trust by proving that it's running exactly what it should be? How do you do that in some of these cases? And that's tricky. So,
Yeah,
Eric, you're starting to get a feel for the complexity, the how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Right.
The rag hole.
Yeah, I remember back at the Sun Microsystems days, they talked about data security, and they basically had guys in their research group that basically said you're just going to have to replicate everything globally in like so many different places that your data, will end up kind of like a species extinction, right? You might have an island somewhere that's protected that, whatever it was that was killing everybody else off didn't get to the island, and then you can go back and get at some of the data. It was interesting research. It's not very practical, and it's, but it is interesting.
The more stuff you have, though, the more attack surface there is, and so there's a balance there. There's, you're going to forget to patch something eventually, and that's going to be how they get in, In my past, like in my own personal career history, for example, the DR preparations that we made, the synchronous mirroring and all that stuff, caused more outages than it even solved, and so, I think about that a lot when I think about security and resilience. What's the balance there between having more stuff to be resilient, but then having to take care of it, and there's not a good answer to that. So.
No,
right. More. This discussion, for example, is more focused maybe for IT environment. No. But what happened when the OT utilities environment is different approach? For example, when you're talking the classical confidentiality, integrity, and availability, for the IT, normally the confidentiality is the first topic. But when they go to OT, is the availability. So the patching for IT is patch for the last thing. But in OT, sometimes the patching is not the first stage. It's not the first step. So depends what your environment, Bob, what is the priority in this. Normally, this discussion is around maybe for IT stuff. Yeah. For OT, it's possible to create something, but the priorities change. It's not the same.
Right.
You need to adapt the security to the environment, the use case, and what you say, Bob, depends.
Yeah, it all depends. If IT had a motto, it would be, it depends.
So I got a question. I always ask this of, when there's diseases that are attacking and, people are dying, whatever it is. I always ask, like, do you know anyone that has died of that disease? And if you do, you should maybe pay attention to it, because if you and your friend ecosystem are coming down with that, maybe you should be taking some vitamins or doing something different with your life. So I'll ask you that from a security perspective. If you've seen customers, that you've engaged with, there are attacks, there are successful attacks, there's people have to pay Bitcoin for ransomware, etc. But if you've seen customers that have adopted vDefend, and they have good practices. What's your experience of observation of getting attacked, right? Like, is it, high, medium, or low? If you kind of like getting audited, and if you in the US and you ask TurboTax, like, what's the likelihood of me getting? They give you kind of a nice little barometer.
It's always low, Eric.
Right. So I never, right.
Tools,
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what I say. Like, what's your experience? Your thought process. If you're doing most of the good security, practices, and you are looking things and implementing these tools, what's the likelihood of them being successful? Low, medium, high, or random? We don't know. Anybody want to take a stab?
Let's hear what Waldemar what he thinks about this.
I think, for example, several customers starting to thinking, but it's I'm changed to the mindset. What they talking, Chris McCain talking the mindset. The problem with the customer is thinking, repeat the same tools before to create new stuff. I don't remember exactly what they called for Einstein about what is the stupid what you repeat and expecting something different result, but it's same.
Yeah, right.
If you use the old tools for the new environment, when you see you have a hammer, everything is a nail.
A nail, yeah.
That
sure.
is so the problem starting.
So if you implement that, you're saying low. I mean high. You're gonna have problems.
Your tools need to evolve with the threats. The threats have evolved considerably in the last 5 years,
Yeah. We are in the middle. It's not low, it's not high. We are in the middle because the awareness for the customer and the mindset change started. It's not end shortly? No. We need to improve that. But I think now with the last thing happening, especially with the ransomware or everything, the organization is starting, we need thinking different. And that is starting to go in the middle. We need continuous improvement, but it's not a naked security. You have in the middle. We need improvement, and you have the tools. Now you need starting to change the mindset and starting the adoption for the tools.
I'll give you an example of that. I find that the Broadcom culture and what they do is much more strict than the VMware culture was, right? Mm-hmm. And so my guess is that they've gone from, a high, VMware maybe was a medium risk. And I look at the culture of Broadcom and I say that Broadcom's risk factor is more in the green, lower, right? Like depending how you define low or high. But I feel like their culture is much more strict. They have dual authent everywhere. And so I think as you move down that spectrum and you have the tools and you have policies and they have governance and they have legal, they have everything, they're a yes company, but they're a yes company once you've jumped through 6 hoops, right, to get approval, right? Yeah,
to analyze the risk in that, because we're the VMware side of Broadcom is a lot different than the side of Broadcom that makes network switches and optics and things like that. And they've got intellectual property that they, that fits into what I was describing earlier. That foreign governments and their APTs would love to get into, and be able to replicate ahead of us being able to bring the stuff to market, it's actually kind of wild seeing this, seeing that side of it, because at VMware, we never really had that, and it's fun to see the actual, that side of it at Broadcom and firsthand, so.
Yes, I agree. And that's why I think they are, a different culture, right? Because the hardware and the years and years, we have years and years of IP and ESX, but but they've got stuff that's, blows your mind with regards to chip layout and how they're building the Wi-Fi chips and so forth. When
they're thinking about that is the security is no IT problem. It's the people problem, is the organization and all problem. When you're talking about security, you need talking what is the awareness from the high level, the people, the CEO, the C level, and started down to the rest of the organization. It's no IT problem. The security is security information, no cyber security, technology security.
Yeah, IT, right, got it.
So you need the people involved, because all the people who are the stronger or the weakest in the chain, because depend what the people. And that involution in the input, the people depend their organization, the level of exposure, the organization. At the same time, when you see the active, when you see what is necessary, my inversion for this active in security, depend the value. And for more organization, the problem is put value for the active, the assets. That is the big challenge. You have tools, yeah, but and again, security is a long discussion, but
yeah, security belongs to everybody. But yeah, you've got a great point, though. People don't see the value of the stuff until it's too late. Like there's a saying here, at least, in the U.S. or whatever. There's an old saying of, or an analogy of shutting the barn door after the horse has already gotten out. So trying to convince people of the value of spending money proactively. People have also said you're going to pay money either way, whether it's a ransom or the recovery process, or just proactive. Do it proactively, and it's So no, that's a really good point of view.
In America, we just make sure we buy a lot of horses, right? Yeah, if you get out, it's
if
okay.
A couple get out, who cares?
Right? Yeah, that's right.
If they want to come back,
yeah, they'll come back. Whatever. Corral them. Let our neighbors have them. Whatever. We put a brand on them. That way, if we, a year later, we find some random horse, we know it was ours. It's fine. It's all good. Right? We know we're at the top of the hour. Lighten it up a little bit. Bob, I'll let you finish up with any kind of last questions. We'll do a barbecue report, and we'll go on our way.
I think this has been terrific. Waldemar, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to talk about, it actually stinks to talk about ransomware and all this stuff. These are serious topics, but we need to talk more about them. We need to, so I appreciate you being here.
And I'm excited if we get vDefender in the Advantage program. I'm excited about that. That should be happening by March. So we're excited. I'm not announcing that yet, but I am saying I think it's going to happen. We've got everybody lined up for it. So that'll be great. We do live stream on youtube.com/vbarbecue. You can always watch us there. And so, Waldemar, you're down in, where is it? Chile? I forget where you said. Chile? Yeah.
No, sorry. No, I born in Uruguay.
Oh, you grew up in Chile?
Uruguay. I know these old people say, "What? We are very well in that."
South Americans,
sorry, yeah.
South Americans do like their meats, though. I will say, what do you do for barbecue?
Yeah. So the tradition in Uruguay is very strong for the barbecue. I wanted to say the people always never know to do the barbecue, especially. Is want some traditional for no carbon, more the woods directly, but it's a nice, strong traditional. But of course, in South America, especially Argentina, Chile, but Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile has a strong tradition for the barbecue in the meats, especially in the meats.
Nice. Well, I did some barbecue this weekend. I got Korean barbecue sauce that you can get at the at the store, grocery store, wherever. I got a local exotic store, and you just take some kind of steak, whatever your favorite steak is, and freeze it, and then cut it really thin with a sharp knife while it's still kind of frozen, and you get really thin. And then I got a Korean barbecue kind of grill it's basically just a round wok like pot with a curved thing. You put water in the bottom of it, and then you put it on any kind of little flame you want. I got a little personal barbecue flame, like a camp barbecue, right? Like it's just a one unit, hook a little propane tank to it, and I put it in the marble in the kitchen, and then we all sit around it like a Korean barbecue, and then just you soak it overnight, the meat overnight, thin, you put it in a bowl, you put it all, soak it overnight, marinate it, and then you throw that on a little hot barbecue, and I think it's super hot, so it tends to crisp it up or burn a little bit, which is what you want. And let me tell you, that's pretty good stuff. And then you have a bowl of rice, and it's just Korean barbecue at home, right? So kind of fun. Really cool. Yeah. And you could do it inside, even though you're barbecuing. You're not supposed to be running propane inside, but it's enough. And you open a window. You open a window, and it's a lot of fun barbecue in the wintertime, right? Just do it inside. It's all great. I had some good barbecue.
Yeah, Corey's shaking his head here. Like people.
Such a yuppie.
Barbecue inside sounds great.
At least in your garage, you can do it there too. Right?
You get a garage full of smoke is the problem,
Yeah.
Exactly.
You definitely get smoke. You can see the layers of smoke in my family room kitchen area. It's one big area. I have a 10-foot high ceiling, which is nice, and I have a couple windows up at the 10-foot layer too. So I cracked those, and then you can see the smoke come down from 10 feet to 9 feet. Yeah, you can see it. Yeah, you can do some blue haze, but it stays above your head level mostly, so it's fine. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
In this part of the world, you have the people love the barbecue, have a special place in the house, barbacoa, for that thing. It's different place, split the couching is only for that.
So you guys are thinking about it. Yeah,
yeah.
We don't need to think about it. We just
you
do
have
it.
The splash in the barbecue in the garden only for barbecue. And maybe sometimes it's closed because sometimes it's winter. And for us, doesn't matter. It's winter, summer, whatever. You have a special place for the barbecue, always.
All right. Well, we are past time here, so we got 7 seconds left till the top of the hour when we started streaming. So great. Waldemar, thanks for being here. Corey Romero, as always. Bob, great to have you here. This is going to be a fun year. I'm looking forward to 2025. Next week, we do have Vargas. I don't know how to say his name. Vargas Philippos will join us to discuss the use cases for super metrics with VMware area operations. So we are scheduled for next week. We will be live streaming as always, and we are going to be posting the MP3s out and about. So take a look for us, and go get some barbecue and have a great rest of your week.